Electricity in the country now, but we are speaking with the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Kensington Energy Limited, Mr. Chuks Nwani. Mr. Nwani, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning. Thanks for having
me. Good to have you. So, I don't know if you heard a bit of the conversation I had with the last guest. I'm talking about the energy mix and adoption of renewables. What's from your interaction with consumers is the sentiment around adoption of alternative sources of energy at this time?
Thank you for that. Basically, as a business and our interactions with the consumers, for a consumer, what they want is power. However it comes from, they want electricity to be provided in their homes. They want electricity to be provided for their businesses. But for the country, because we know the challenges we are having in terms of having one source of energy. And that's why, just like Abubakar earlier mentioned, they came up with different energy mix. The idea is such that even if there are constraints on one particular form of energy, the other part of energy are able to support, both in terms of pricing and in terms of availability. So energy mix, it's a kind of a program that I think the federal government of Nigeria has been pursuing as part of the long-term policy strategy in ensuring sustainability and the energy reliability in the country. So we believe that having that in terms of the solar, the hydro, and every other forms of energy to support the our-based energy, major energy mainstream, which is basically gas, we help in terms of creating that kind of energy security for the country.
But for you as a player from the private sector, are you involved in the renewable side of it?
Yes, of course, we are doing something on the renewable. However, because there are what we call comparative advantage. Each locations have a comparative advantage in terms of what kind of energy we should bring into the mix. Like when you have an area where there is hydro and you're able to generate at a very good, coming at a good pricing point. So it becomes very good for you to consider that as a part of your energy source. Also, in some locations where you do not have maybe gas and you have a lot of sunshine, or where there are infrastructure deficits in terms of moving power from one location to another. That way, we also consider that, look, having an alternative source like a solar power to provide some level of support will be more sustainable than building a long-term infrastructure. So basically, the consideration, it depends on where you have a comparative advantage. Those are where such decisions are made.
How has this affected the issue of pricing? Because pricing is the reason we have band A and band B, at least one of the reasons. I think availability is the other one. How has this affected, this band A, band B, and the pricing model that is being used at this time?
Okay, basically in terms of the energy mix, that's why we have energies that are expensive, energies that are very cheaper, and then you also have a middle ground. And that's basically what NEC as a regulator does, is to bring this energy together and try to be able to have a kind of a price point that the consumers are going to be very comfortable with. Because, you see, when you try to generate certain type of energy from a certain location and it's very expensive, you don't move the entire pricing to the consumers in that location because it will be too difficult for them to be able to afford. And what NEC does, which is why they have this energy mix, is to bring this energy together and try to create an average tariff that will help to make this energy available and sustainable. So you do not really have to pass the entire cost to the consumers.
So, which is why we have subsidy now, and Mr. Bubakar also talked about there might be a need to remove the subsidy. Where exactly does the electricity subsidy come in the value chain?
Okay, the electricity subsidy comes in basically at the last mile, which is in terms of, instead of passing the full tariff on the consumers, part of that tariff is taken upon by the state in terms of the tariff. Like today, if you look at the band B tariff, you will agree with me that that band B does not even cover the cost of the energy generation, which is hovering between 110 to 125. So it means that those in band A are actually, to some extent, subsidizing those in band B. And the government, to some extent, is also subsidizing the entire sector by ensuring that these full costs are not passed to the consumers. However, one of the things we're also looking at, another way of this, the subsidy comes in the sense that you have the hydro, which comes at one of the cheapest in terms of pricing. So the hydro comes at a very cheapest in the pricing, and when you consummate the hydro generation together with the gas generation and other forms of energy mix like the solar and all that, the government is able to use the pricing model coming in from the hydro to provide some kind of balance in terms of pricing. Whatever is the difference that goes to the final consumers, the government is able to come in and able to support that, such that the value chain, the entire energy value chain, do not suffer. Coming from those who provide the feedstock, like the gas, to those who provide the generations, like the big gencos that are connected to the national grid, even down to the of course the retail market, which is the distribution companies.
Okay, but so if electricity subsidy was to be removed now, can you help us understand what pricing would look like?
Today, if we could have what I could say full deregulation in terms of pushing in the total price to the consumers, we'll be looking at in the average of between 190 to 210 naira per kilowatt hour, all depending on certain sector in terms of the of course the FX issue, the gas price, which is the major mainstay in terms of our power generation. However, there are some variables in terms of embedded generation that could come in a little bit cheaper than this, which is having this generation closer to the consumers. So you could have in between 170 to that's 210, all depending on the pricing of your feedstock. So these are where we believe that the pricing template for the full deregulation of the power sector should be. So you won't have some people paying 58 naira, some paying 85 naira, because they are not actually paying the true cost of this power. So everybody within that actually takes power from the grid, who may have to step up in terms of the tariff, so within 180 to 200 naira per kilowatt hour.
Okay, so many have said that if this were to happen, the subsidy were to be removed, it would be an incentive to get more investment fund into the sector, and that could deal with, the issue of infrastructural gap, which they say is why we have a lot of grid collapse and everything. But from your perspective, how do we balance this? Because, of course, then it will be really expensive for consumers, but we also need those investors to come in and deal with the infrastructural gap, especially now that states are empowered to play a major role in this. How do we find a balance in this picture?
Well, for us as a business and as players in the power sector, we think that with the state government now coming into as a player into the system, there's a need to possibly look into closing up the metering gap, because it's very key. If you pass the entire tariff to the customers, there's going to be chaos in the market because those in estimated billing will not be able to pay for whatever is being estimated because it's going to be very high, and there are no measurable components in terms of determining how much power these consumers are able to consume, or even how this consumer is able to manage their electricity through maybe turning off some of their major equipment they are using. Because at the end of the day, they end up paying estimated billing, which it's going to be very, very, very high. So our view will be that there is a need to work with the state government to quickly close the metering gap, even up to the 85% before such exercise should be contemplated. And such that we know that what we'll be dealing with is issue of meter bypass and power theft, which can, we believe, with right regulatory support from the state and the federal government, is able to be contained at a minimum. But in the interim, we do not believe that the entire tariff should be passed to the consumers until there are some level of closing of the metering gap to 80 to 95% in terms of the customer we have today connecting to our electricity network.
But we have a lot of metering programs going on. There's a new one that the minister told us they're taking collection of thousands of meters this month and next month. Are they getting to those who really need to get them, these meters?
Yes, of course. I'm very much aware that there are a lot of interventions on the metering side of it. Today, those in band A generally get meter free. You'll be sitting in your house and they will get a call that your meters are available for installation, that you should provide certain information for them to come and provide those meters. So we are aware that those are actually in progress. But then we think that possibly this needs to be much more aggressive than where we are, meaning that the state governments need to literally come in, especially now that most of them have actually passed their laws. I think about 18 states have, as of today, have passed their state electricity laws. About 3 states have technically taken up the management of their electricity markets. So we think that there is a need for the state to quickly come in terms of those metering, because the essence why the states were allowed to actually take control of their electricity in their various states is because they are closer to the consumers. And being closer to the consumers, they are able to identify those areas, working with the existing discourse on those who actually need these meters. They are also able to work with the government and the discourse to create additional incentive to bring other players in terms of the retail market players to come in and support to close this metering gap. Because I must say that metering is very key in terms of measuring how much power a consumer has consumed, and that gives that consumer that kind of confidence to actually pay for this power or look for another means to manage his electricity consumption to ensure that it continues to have power.
All right, thank you so much. We hope this gets to everyone soon. Talking about the meters now, Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Kensington Energy Limited, Mr. Chukwusuwani, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.